Hello viewers, I'm SB, and this is MOLEK-SYNTEZ. Before we get started here, I want to say this game has almost no music. It has a very quiet, very sparse ambient soundtrack. So I thought I didn't want to talk over near silence for however long it's going to take to do this. So there's a piece of music playing quietly in the background. It's a Kevin MacLeod composition. There's information about it in the description. I just want to be clear though, this music is not from this game. Okay. MOLEK-SYNTEZ is a Zachtronics puzzle game. Those of you who have been around the channel for long enough know that every time one of these games comes out, I make a video raving about how incredible I think it is, and it feels like nobody watches these or cares, but I am never going to stop making them because, y'all, I love these games. They're so good, and this one is no exception. So we are going to step in here to a nice, early, simple puzzle. I'm going to teach you the mechanics and stuff, and hopefully some of you at least will come to understand what is great about this. These games are definitely not for everybody, but the people they are for really, really like them. So in every level, we have this like chemical recombination workspace. It's a hex grid with a rail around the outside that has 6 emitters mounted on it. We have a desired chemical output, and we have a limited selection of chemical precursors with which to build our output. There is a plot in the game, a little bit of a plot. It's mostly implied. But the most important part of the plot to understand is that we are not working in a well-funded chemical laboratory. We kind of gotta work with whatever we can source here, you know? So, how are we going to build some Y-hydroxybutyric acid? Well, I have solved this puzzle before, but it was right when the game came out, so I don't remember it, but it's an early one. We should have no problem getting through it. I'm noticing that the right half of our output solution is just acetic acid, right? Almost exactly as it appears here. So let's grab an acetic acid input and rotate it to match. And then we need 2 more carbons and an oxygen. Ethylene glycol will get us most of the way there. Actually, looking at it, another acetic acid would cover it, but we're going to take the glycol because it's slightly wrong, and it'll give us an opportunity to play with the systems a little bit more. I want to show you exactly what it is you do in this game. So we're going to lay this down like this. Yeah, okay. So these are the inputs that we have selected. You can bring in as many precursor inputs as you want, but obviously this is all we need. So the way you actually interact with your inputs is you have these emitters right around the rail on the outside. The columns on the left side are where you assemble a program for each emitter from the instruction set here. So for like the very first thing we want to do here is remove this oxygen, right? We need 3 oxygens. We have 4. That's too many. So let's put this here. We can set it anywhere on the rail, and we can also rotate it to face whichever direction we like. Put this here, and we're going to run an add hydrogen atom instruction from it. So you can see it's now pointed at that oxygen, and the way the atom bonding works in this game, and I have known nothing about chemistry, so I have no idea if this is mimicking a real chemical process or if this is how the video game had to work for the puzzles to make sense. But each atom has a maximum number of bonds that it can bear. Right now, the oxygen is at its bond limit. It's bonded with 1 hydrogen atom and with 1 carbon atom. But atoms prefer to bond with hydrogen, so if we shoot another hydrogen at the oxygen, like so, you can see it picks that up and bonds with it and breaks the carbon bond. And now that carbon atom has a bold outline to indicate that it has a bond available. If we put it next to another atom that has an available bond, they will bond together. And now that we've separated this guy from the rest of the molecule, we can run a trash target command. Boom, deleted it. Okay, this is the set of atoms we need, but we're not totally there yet. This oxygen is in the wrong place. We have to replicate the desired output exactly. It can be rotated as a whole, but all of the bonds have to be in their depicted positions and stuff. So let's deal with this problem. This hydrogen needs to be moved. And we can do the same thing with this that we did with the last one. We can throw this oxygen needs to be moved. We can throw a hydrogen at it, and then we can use the push target command to move it around. Now we need it to be over here, and unfortunately, you can move the emitter heads side to side on the rail using these slide commands, but you cannot rotate them during the solution. So we're going to need a second emitter facing this way to execute a second push. Yeah, like that. So now we have it approximately the right shape, but there's still some things wrong. First of all, we need a bond to exist right here. This needs to be a single bond. Let's solve one problem at a time. This guy is at his maximum bonds, 3 hydrogen and 1 other carbon. So we can solve this by... I know there was already an emitter pointed right at that. It's easier for me if I keep my ideas in numerical order here. So if we just throw another... Sorry, if we subtract a hydrogen from him, we should see a bond form between these two on the very first instruction, right? Because this carbon loses one of its bonds immediately, so it just rebonds with the other carbon, and this is starting to look like pretty much the right shape. If we have emitter 3 draw a hydrogen off of the oxygen over here after pushing it, then that's our desired output, right? Yeah, easy. Okay, so then we run an output target instruction to deliver the desired chemical to wherever it is that it's going. And when we run our machine, 4 instructions, it looks like that. As soon as all of these spaces in an input are cleared, a new instance of the input molecule is served up to us. And your goal in each level is to create a machine that can cyclically create the output with no garbage left over, because you want it to just keep running forever. So in order to actually solve a level, you have to create a machine that will run, it's like 20 or 30 times. You can see we can have it run forward at a faster speed here. Once we're confident it will just continue to run. And once you've done that, once you've created a machine that can do that, you get your synthesis complete, you beat the level, and in proper Zachtronics form, you get the histograms. The deal with these is it's rating you on 3 different criteria. Cycles is the number of instruction rows that you used. We had a pretty slow solution here, took 480 cycles. You can see in the past I had a solution that only took 120. And it compares us to everybody who's ever solved this puzzle on Steam. Clearly, most people do this in a significantly faster way, and I think I know what they did. We'll go and we'll create that faster solution in a second here. But the leaderboard over here shows what your best score of all time in each category was, and it also shows you the best score in each category from each of your Steam friends. So right now I only have 1 friend on Steam who has played this game, and here is their score. If you are the right kind of nerd and you are friends with the right kinds of nerds, you can sometimes get into a thing where, like, I'll complete a puzzle and my solution will be 10 cycles faster than my friend Mike. And then the next day after work, he'll come home and he'll get on the game and he'll notice and he'll go, well, that will never stand. And he'll go back and refine his solution to make it like 30 cycles faster than mine. And then I see that, and some of you, your eyes are glassing over at the very thought of this. But I promise, for the people who that's exciting for, it's very exciting. And then also, you're ranked on modules, which is the number of emitters that you used, plus the number of inputs that you used. You can see our solution here used 6 modules, which is pretty low. Most people used 8, it looks like. Our friend here used 8. And then we're also ranked on symbols, which is the number of programming instructions that you used. This is an 8 symbol solution. I have done a 6 symbol solution in the past, it looks like. So let's speed this up. This is way slower than everybody else's solution. We can probably fix that. My guess is that we fix that in part by using another acetic acid as the other input, but I wanted to show you how the pushing works. There's also the ability to rotate the target molecule on the board, which we didn't use there. But beyond that, that's pretty much all of the instructions you ever learn. You're not like constantly unlocking new things to do. It's just good, straightforward spatial puzzling. So what do we want to do here? We want to remove hydrogen from both of these carbons. We want to delete this guy And that's it, right? So this is pretty straightforward. We'll delete all this stuff. So emitters 1 and 2 both remove carbon. That'll free up a bond on each of these and tie them together. And then we can have 3 and 4 both add hydrogen to this guy to break him free of the shape. And then we actually need to put carbon on, or hydrogen on this carbon as well, right? Because in the output it has 2 hydrogens. And then we should be able to run this. Oh, somebody's got to delete the spare oxygen. Yeah, there we go. That runs. You know what? Now that I'm looking at it, we don't actually have to do all of this. We don't necessarily need to put hydrogen on the oxygen. We just need to make it not bonded anymore. If we put 2 hydrogens onto the carbon like this, yeah, that breaks the oxygen loose because the carbon only has room for 2 other things to be bonded to it. Instead of cutting off the molecule's head, we just cut off its entire body. So if we did this... Hold on, okay. If we move these over to the 3 and 4 heads and have those be the ones that are targeting the carbon, then we can have head 5, emitter head 5, delete this, and head 6 can just, yeah, it can be pretty much anywhere as long as it's just pointed at the molecule. It can process the output, and we can do this in one instruction, right? Yeah, look at that. I bet that's what everybody did. Yep, that gets you the 120 with 6 modules, or with 8 modules and 6 symbols. Yep, okay, that makes sense. If you're curious, the reason I had to move those instructions around is that it doesn't actually process a whole line of instructions simultaneously. It does go from left to right. So if we had the delete instruction being done by like head 3, then this would get deleted before it was actually cleared from the rest of this molecule, and that would mean this whole molecule was getting deleted. So there are some, in addition to there being spatial puzzle issues that you have to solve, you will also have timing problems and stuff. I think it's, with a relatively simple set of tools, they've made a really compelling thing here. Alright, so that's a simple puzzle. That's how that goes. This seems like a lot of puzzles, and it turns out it's only half of them. When you hit, when you beat the last of these, you unlock the extra puzzles tab, which I have not really gotten into yet. So let's just go ahead and make some sarin. That's definitely going to be used for not evil, right? So in the second page of puzzles, you start working with more complicated precursors. There's a larger number of chemical atom types. So what do we need here? We need... Well, we need a phosphorus, and we only have one precursor that even has phosphorus in it. So we have to have a phosphoric acid input. And we'll put it down like this to replicate the position of the double bond. And then we're also going to need just like a bunch of carbon. We need 4 carbons. There's a couple of different options we have for bringing in 4 carbons with a single input. We could use isobutane or butylene. I don't think it makes any sense to try to bring in any of this bigger stuff, because it's just going to take a lot more operations to work with it. So if we say... How about the butylene, because the top part of the butylene already looks right. If we put this down like this... We also need a fluoride. Okay, we can just get hydrofluoric acid. Okay, that's simple enough. So how do we get rid of this oxygen? I guess is one question. If we start the puzzle like this, none of the emitters can actually touch the oxygen. Maybe I want to leave a little bit of an opening here. So the first thing we should do, we got to get rid of this oxygen and that oxygen, and we have to rebond some of this stuff. I think the very first thing we want to do is pull the hydrogen off of the fluoride. So now, if we add a hydrogen to this oxygen, that should free up, it'll mean the oxygen is just bonded to the hydrogens. It'll free up a bond on the on this, and it'll immediately bond with the fluoride. Okay, that's step 1. Sorry, that's not the one we want to mess with, though. That one's fine. That one should stay right there. Here, let's do it like this. Okay, good. Then we do eventually need to remove a hydrogen from this, I guess. But whatever, later. We also need to remove a hydrogen from this guy. He needs to be deleted. Actually, sorry, we have to add a hydrogen to this guy. I wonder, hold on. There's an instruction we haven't talked about yet. This shunt hydrogen atom pushes a hydrogen from one atom to the next atom in the line that it's in. What happens if we do a shunt on this? So now we just have the hydrogen here with the extra bond available. Yeah, actually I like that. That's a little bit more efficient, and then we can just have 3 immediately process a deletion. So that'll get rid of this oxygen atom in the first cycle, which means that we can then push this over here, because it won't matter that it's blocking that space anymore. So let's have... You need to subtract a hydrogen atom here because it has to be able to bond with the oxygen, and then you just want to push this. As soon as we push it, though, we lose access to it because of the fact that we completely clear the input space. So maybe that's a dangerous thing to do. Actually, maybe we want to push the phosphorus over instead, because there'll still be, if we push the phosphorus like so. Oops, there's a delete getting processed incorrectly there. Hold on a second. What happened? Oh, you know what? The delete might be running last? Yeah, okay, that's a weird issue. Alright, we'll just, hold on. We'll just move this down here for clarity. So if we push this like this, a bunch of this molecule is still hanging over the input area, so it doesn't immediately spawn a new thing. And then what? Then we need to remove this oxygen, pull this carbon off of that shape, and move it over slightly. So the best way to do that is probably going to be a shunt command. Yeah, so now this is removable, that oxygen. And then, oh no, wait, sorry. A shunt command isn't what we want, because we actually want the amount of hydrogen on this to go up, not down. So carbon can have 4 bonds. We need to get this to 4 bonds. Or we need to get this to 3 bonds, actually. That didn't work the way I wanted it to. Because this is supposed to have 3 bonds in the end, and it's supposed to be bonded to that guy. Alright, what if we just go ahead and take it up to 4 bonds so it's not bonded to anything external? Then we delete the hydrogen right here, or the oxygen right here. And we can have 5 pull that into position. Yeah, we're close. It's a little bit clumsy, but that's alright. The first step is writing a solution. The second step, the more important step, is refining your solution so that it doesn't look so terrible. So at some point here, we want to remove one of the hydrogen atoms we set up. We want to make sure that this breaks off of everything else. But now we can remove that, this bonds correctly, and now this whole part of the molecule looks like the correct output. It's just that we have to throw 1 more hydrogen at this thing after it gets pulled, and I think we've got ourselves an output. Right? That's exactly what we were looking for? Yeah, okay, so let's run the output. Unfortunately, because we're using Can we move this to here without breaking the machine? Yes, we can. All right, that lets us put an output right there. This is the very last instruction on the 6th line, and this machine should just work, right? This should be a functional cyclic solution. All right, I'm not super happy about it, but it's functional. Yeah, you can see most people did it in fewer cycles with the same number of modules, but they did take more instructions to get it done. Wow, some people managed to cut it even below the number that we used. Alright, I'm curious. Let's see if we can make this faster, because there's an awful lot of dead space over here. It feels like we could have some of these processor heads contributing more than they are. Well... okay, if we... I guess, first of all, there's no reason... I was about to say there's no reason that this has to, that 5 has to push on the second frame instead of the... or the 5 has to push before removing the oxygen, but I guess that's not true. That oxygen is like a convenient handle for us to use to shove the molecule over. Alright, hold on, let's delete this whole thing. Let's just try to start again from better principles here. Is there a way to lay this out? If we put this here, then we can push it up and to the left to move it into position after we've cleared this, and parts of it will still be covering the input. Like this atom will be right there, so we'll be guaranteed to not get any surprise inputs showing up before we're finished manipulating. That's probably a thing worth doing. We could do it the other way too, actually. We could push the phosphoric oxide down and to the right. Is that what? Phosphoric acid, sorry. Down and to the right, and that would get the job done. But this, we have to have an opening to delete this oxygen, because it's very troublesome. So I guess one thing that's really nice about this arrangement is that it lets us do a shunt straight through here. So we can push through that, and then we can have second processor head set up with the quick deletion, right? Yeah, look at that. That's pretty good. So now all we have to do is slide one of these in an appropriate direction. And we also need one of our emitters to pull hydrogen from you. Okay. There we go. Now if we execute a push, it is going to cause a new fluoride to spawn, but also that's probably fine. So what other prep can we do on this frame while we're waiting for the push to become available? Because we do need to push after the delete, right? Is what we learned. So you can... yeah, it makes sense for you to add a hydrogen. It might just be sensible to disconnect this guy by adding all the hydrogen here instead of putting any on this carbon molecule, because this thing has to end up with 3 hydrogens anyway, right? Also need for this thing to get deleted at some point. I guess we can do that. That does a ton of our prep work on the first frame. Actually, hold on. We want this to be here, because I think I want an emitter that's facing this direction. This doesn't actually solve the problem of, like, if we don't also delete you in the first frame, this oxygen right here, in the first cycle, then we still can't push this down. Which means that maybe we're better off pushing this thing. I mean, we actually are better off pushing this thing up, right? Or pulling it. And if that's the case, then the fluoride thing does not need to happen right away. Actually, maybe I'm being a little bit silly here. maybe what we do is have you right there. You can do the pull on the second cycle, which means you don't need to be here. We can have this thing be just devoted to getting rid of that extra oxygen. And maybe we don't want to remove this just yet. So we have 4 add a hydrogen to it, which it is going to need. And then we still have to deal with the fluoride. We have to like get this phosphorus rebound completely. Like here we have emitter 5, put that in position, and then siphon. Our last solution was 6 processor lines long. This is looking like it's not actually even going to be faster. We need to have things like working multiple jobs, unfortunately. So once the push happens, emitter 1 can add 2 hydrogen. Emitter 3 needs to slide to the left. Oh, sorry, hold on. It needs to slide to the right. See, the slide emitter actions show an arrow, but they don't actually mean slide left or right. They mean slide clockwise or counterclockwise. So we have to put in a right arrow instruction to have this move to its left, because of what it's actually doing is going counterclockwise. Yeah, this is not actually going to end up being faster, is it? Because if we have the 3 emitter move around, we have to make sure that we reset it before the next cycle of the machine, right? Otherwise, it's going to be in the wrong place and it's going to be applying instructions to the wrong targets. So how do we deal with that? All right, maybe I'm making this too complicated by trying to move the pieces. Maybe the smarter play is to have this right here and just cut through. We have to remove this oxygen anyway, right? So maybe maybe that's how we deal with it. I don't think that that's necessarily unreasonable. So if we have emitter 2 dealing with the lower carbon, say it does that. Actually, out of curiosity, we have to get this to 3 anyway, right? So what happens if I do this? If I move them both to 3 hydrogens? All right, let's delete that. I'm just curious where the bond... Okay, the bond still breaks in the wrong place. So yeah, we have to move this up, and then sadly, if we try to execute a push command as efficiently as possible here, we're just making it so that this thing can't be deleted anymore. Although I guess we're not really, right? If we had an emitter down here, we could still break that. And we need an emitter to remove hydrogen from this oxygen eventually anyway. Hold on, let's have that be 4. After this move is executed, emitter 4 does this. And we have to end this on the 5th instruction line, or else it's not even an increase in efficiency, right? Oh, I forgot to remove the delete command from the first head, or the first emitter. First emitter removes... That builds us that. This is very close. We need the 6th emitter up here to just remove a single hydrogen at some point and then be the output, and 3 needs to add an additional bond to the additional hydrogen to this carbon, and that is totally it. I mean, it's faster, right? That's a functional solution, and it brings our cycle time down to 600, which puts us in the pack. Some people manage to do it faster, though. Can we cut a cycle out of this somehow? The biggest waste here is that as things are set up right now, the 4th thing, the emitter 4 can't process its delete until the 4th line. Here, we could have it help out with adding hydrogen molecules here, and maybe this actually is good enough. If it helps cut the carbon free faster. That doesn't work because we can't actually execute this push until that oxygen is gone. What if we do this? Instead of adding oxygen, you delete that thing as soon as it's cut free. Then pull the carbon, right? This has to happen in the other order. The carbon has to get added, and then the pull instruction has to occur. We're so close. We're so close to getting this done in 4 lines, which would put us a little bit ahead of the pack on cycle time, and for some reason, that's the thing I care about. A tremendous amount, it turns out. Man. I can feel that we are close. Okay, hold on. We should have at 5 do this, right? And then if we have head 5 push the hydrogen through, then we no longer need to feed a hydrogen to this at all before deleting it. It's ready to go immediately. This push still doesn't work. Ooh, that's... Hold on. So now we've got that deleted from a different direction. That's a problem. If we free up too much bond space around the phosphorus too early, it causes a problem. So let's have the 5 head do this shunt, then move over and pull a hydrogen off of the phosphorus. It's still not quite right, is it? Yeah, this getting removed too early is actually a big problem because it causes the oxygen to double bond with the phosphorus, which is not a thing we can have happen. We're very close here, but I think I might need to take this solution back to the drawing board if we want to get it down to 4 lines. Which is frustrating. We're so close. What about this? What if we have 6 execute a shunt command as well, rather than just subtracting? So we push a hydrogen through here, but then we feed a hydrogen to the oxygen so that we know it won't double bond with the phosphorus. Now we've got this in approximately the right shape. Yeah, the left part of it is totally right. All that needs to change for this solution to work is that we have to have 6 draw an extra hydrogen off of here at some point. Wait, where did the extra hydrogen even come from? Oh, for some reason There's a vestige of a previous plan. For some reason, the one emitter is shooting a hydrogen, which it definitely does not need to be doing. Hey, there we go. This totally works. Look at it. Look at the beautiful simplicity of it. Simplicity is what I'm choosing to call the thing that's happening here. That feels pretty efficient. There's not a lot of dead space in that solution. There's a couple of emitters that aren't doing a tremendous amount of work, but I'm pretty happy with that. And so if you get a solution, 480 still, it's not enough to get us over to here. My biggest problem with this game is that sometimes the histograms, they don't break down in a way that makes a lot of sense. Like, this tall bar here is everybody who solved the puzzle in 480 cycles and 600. I wish it was broken out into a separate bar. Obviously, that's kind of a tricky thing to do programmatically. It is cool that we managed to get our symbols down below the number of that the pack is using here. But this is probably a good place to stop. You don't need to watch me fiddle with this thing for another hour. Another thing that Zachtronics games frequently do that I really appreciate is there's an export GIF button right here on this. Anytime you solve a level, you can immediately make a GIF of your solution and just put it on your desktop, and then you can, tweet it or whatever. And if you just said to yourself out loud, who would ever tweet something like this? You can follow me on Twitter. It's the links in the links on the main YouTube page. It's me. I'm the one who's tweeting the MOLEK-SYNTEZ GIFs. That is going to be it for us for today, because the very long piece of music I lined up just ended, which seems like an omen. This game totally rules. At this point, you very much know whether this is your sort of thing or not. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you some other time. Next time, but like later, but soon, but not playing this probably, is what I'm trying to express.